promoting mindful well-being in everyday life. This is the Pragmatic Alchemy Podcast with your host, Courtney Edwards.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pragmatic Alchemy Podcast. I'm Courtney Edwards, and I'm your host today. We are joined by an absolute delight of a human, and I'm so excited that my friend Sharon Rosen has decided that she will share some of her insights and her wisdom and talk a little bit about the healing work that she does, because her energy, y'all, I hope it comes through audio because she's just a bundle of love and light and peace and calm and inspires me to be better at all of the things that I do. And so I'm excited to share what she has to offer with you all today. Sharon, thank you for joining us today. I was going to go through all of the hyphenates attached to your name, but I don't want to mess it up. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the work that you do?
Thank you. What an introduction. Wow. So I have been in the healing arts for 35 years, which is kind of astonishing. Mm-hmm. And for many years was a massage therapist, was always interested in spiritual development and psychological growth and healing. And so during the course of my massage career, I was also studying Gestalt therapy, and I did trainings in Reiki and became a Reiki master, and did a program in something called non-dual Kabbalistic healing, which is a mouthful, and most people don't know what the heck it is, but it's based on the tree of life from the Jewish framework and the healing that is held within that. It's actually very, very deep, profound work. Mm-hmm. Has been really a source of a lot of my own settling and healing and understanding of how the world works and how humans work and how we can be our most whole, healed, how to take off as many of the veils from our best, most intrinsic selves as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I personally was probably the most interested, like for my own selfish reasons, to hear about the Kabbalistic healing. If I'm mispronouncing that, correct me. Just because I'm familiar with the idea of the Kabbalah, but just that's it.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the
which is what many people are if they've even heard the word. And I didn't even mention the mindfulness, which is the thing that we have so in common among other things, but the mindfulness meditation teaching and groups that I run and all of that, which is also, I'd say, I was raised Jewish, and that's one of the reasons Kabbalah spoke to me. And so to me, the two legs that I stand on spiritually and healing wise are the Buddhist path and the Kabbalistic awarenesses. Yeah.
And I've always heard it described as maybe the more mystic branch of Judaism. Is there accuracy to that, or is that
that's how it's generally understood. With any, it's interesting, I guess you could say this about any religion or spiritual path, that there are different levels on which you can understand it, right? And so there's the kind of holy roller Bible thumpers, and they're very much in the what we call Asiya, which is this world, the manifest world. This is the word is it. And then there's a somewhat more subtle level where you kind of get into the stories about the stories in the Bible or whatever book you're working with. And then there are subtler and subtler levels. There are 4 levels. I don't remember the specific words for them, but so Kabbalah is, yes, that most, how do I say, that most ineffable way of trying to understand and make sense of who we are, who or what God is, how that all works, and And yeah, there's just, I mean, this is a subject I could just go on and on and on about, but I don't
Yeah,
want to get
I'll let
too,
you. I was going to say, I'll let you. You
I
can
don't want
say
to get too out there.
anything you want to say.
And it's kind of hard without a certain level of visuals for people to even
Gotcha.
grasp what I'm talking about. But um, it's one of the things I really love about Kabbalah and about that way of looking at things is that it really points to that we are in relationship with the divine, and that the divine, however you understand it, however you express it, the universe. I use God. I haven't gotten too put off by that word yet because I have my own awareness and sense of what that means.
Right.
Which is not, which is not the white man with the white beard on the throne in the clouds passing judgment.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But
that one doesn't work for me either.
No, never did. And the thing is, when I encountered Kabbalah, I encountered this concept of the Ein Sof, which is the limitless. It's what most people think of as the universe.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, that's what I've always related to when I've been in synagogue and when I've been singing these beautiful ancient prayers in Hebrew. I would read the English translations and go, yeah, blah, 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 lots of words. I don't relate. But there was a feeling. And that feeling, what I was relating to was the Ein Sof. It was the mystery, the great mystery.
I was going to ask you about that because I was perusing your website to prepare some questions for you today. And on your website, you mention our relationship with the great mystery. And so I was just a little bit curious about how you conceptualize that, how you define it or talk about it.
Oh, just a small question. So
that's what I do.
I know. So the way I would talk about that is that there's a spark of the divine. Anything that exists because of that. And so, this is what Native peoples know. This is what shamanistic cultures know, which is everything is alive, and everything is because of the source. And then we take it even a little bit further, which is everything that is. My teacher actually wrote a song. We did a lot of chanting, and it's everything that is allowed to exist exists in light. So there is a spark of divine light in everything. And then we get to the non-dual part, which is everything, the pollution, the cancer, the pain. There is nowhere God is not.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, that's really beautiful. And just even the way you just described that using which is a Buddhist concept that I'm familiar with, which is the suffering, the pain, the grief, and that recognition that it's not my pain, it's not your pain, it's the pain, because we all share it. And then to kind of add in that idea that the divine exists in there too. Yeah. That's really lovely. I'm going to take just a brief note to plug an essay by Ross Gay that I love in his Book of Delights. And he talks about our suffering is the great wilderness, and that if we connect our wildernesses, that is joy. And it just feels like that kind of connects with what you're saying. And I just want everybody to read that essay and or read that whole book because it's phenomenal.
So I'll have to find that another book to add to the pile.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's a delight. It's called the Book of Delights, but it's a delight of a book, and it's very much founded in gratitude practice, which is one of the things that keeps my battery full and moving along.
And it's so important because now to take a little left turn, but of course it all weaves together. The mindfulness piece or the neuroscience piece that we bring in now to the mindfulness practices, which is, we're wired for survival. And so we really need to build and groove those pathways of gratitude and of focusing on, what is working and what did go well today and how very beautiful that I have this cup of tea to sip on, all of those things.
Yeah, I agree. That, it's been a powerful direction that I feel like my work has shifted to, which is this idea of well-being and inviting in well-being, because particularly during the COVID crisis, when people are coming to me for coaching or meditation instruction, and they're suffering so deeply, and none of that was an inappropriate, like, it was all very appropriate to the circumstances, and they were circumstances that I couldn't say, well, here, if you make this small change in your life, it's going to alleviate all of it. It's like, no, because we're still in a global pandemic, and people are still losing their jobs, and people are dying, and there's a lot of national unrest. And so I really shifted my focus to how do then we invite more of the good in when so much around us is bad. Gratitude is such a powerful pathway to that. But that sort of where the thread of this is going is leading me to my little tiny question. But one, I feel like I would just love to hear your perspectives on, which is, what do you see as the commonalities of our suffering? What do you see as perhaps the reasons that people suffer as badly as it seems like people are suffering right now?
Yeah.
Little tiny, just small.
A little tiny. Yeah, just small thing to ponder and talk about in a few minutes. I would say I don't necessarily look for reasons. I really have come to the place of things happen. And if I can be so bold, and you can block this out if you need, shit happens. This is life.
Oh yeah, no, we curse here.
Good.
Unedited, full cursing. Go right ahead.
This is what it is to be human. It's built into the human condition. Even the most perfect parenting, a child will have psychological and emotional wounds, because we cannot, any of us as infants, have all of our needs met perfectly in every single moment. So even those of us like myself who were lucky enough to grow up in a loving home where we were mostly actually seen and encouraged, and I know a lot of people don't have that privilege, and that breaks my heart. There was stuff, I had to work through.
Right.
And I won't get into that, but very real psychological and emotional wounding. And so the suffering, I don't remember where I heard or read this, but I have come to the awareness that why is really not a helpful question to ask.
Yeah.
Why this? Why me? Why now? I think that just can lead us down some very unhappy, uncomfortable, stuck paths, dead ends. But how can I be with this? What can I take from this? Where can I find solace and comfort? And I don't mean, those kind of comforts that end up making you sick, like eating, 3 cups of Ben and Jerry's, or, a whole thing of cookies. There's a place for some of that, but, and what are our real comforts? And that kind of, to me, ties back into the gratitude of paying attention to the small things, like, it's getting colder here in the Hudson Valley. Oh, how lovely. I have wool socks.
Yeah. And after a summer of sandals, I actually am excited for my wool socks.
I don't know if I'm excited. I'm grateful. And
I like cozy. So
I like cozy too.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of those things, I don't think, is there a reason that a 4-year-old gets cancer and dies? I don't think so. And to me, that's where we can get into that kind of either what the Buddhists call idiot compassion, right? Which is not true compassion. It's that, oh, God needed another angel. Gag me. Or
as a parent of a child with a disability, that makes me want to get a little stabby. oh, God gives special kids to special parents. I'm like, no, fuck you. No.
Yeah, no, this is what it is. And this is a person. I mean, we could go down a totally different path here, but I'm going to try and stay where we were for now. And I just kind of lost the thread of, idiot compassion and spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
My other favorite soapbox to get on and poke a lot of holes through.
Yeah.
Because I've been on a conscious spiritual path since I'm in college, probably even before that, but certainly college and right after. And I've seen and heard an awful lot of really crappy stuff that had sparkly sprinkles pasted over it, or rainbows and unicorns. But it's basically that same, because people don't know how to simply be with.
Right.
And so they make this stuff up. Make this stuff up
to try to feel better.
Angel, to try and feel better, to not feel their own discomfort at what they might imagine is your discomfort. Or just their own, right? Because you're fine with Lucy. I mean, it's hard, but
sure,
she's also amazing and brings so much. And I have a dear, dear friend who is going to turn 21, who has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And, his mom and I have these conversations a lot. It's like, you don't wish for this, but then again, he is just a delight of a person, and just such a good, open-hearted person. And I think we need that in the world.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. I really do truly believe that. One of the things that you had said a couple minutes ago is, when we are in despair and we ask ourselves this question of why me? And I've often used that exact phrase as an example of kind of my journey in being her mom, because I think, when she was first born and I was grieving, and struggling, with this new reality, I can remember thinking like, God, like, why me? Why did this happen to me? And now that like I'm open to the gifts and the challenges and the full spectrum of life that she provides us, it's more of a humbled, like, why me? Like, what did I ever do to deserve this? Like, because it really, and it's the same exact words that I said in my grief that now I say in that open acceptance of this is what it is, and it is, there are moments that are super hard and there's other moments that are just pure joy. And it's just about being with all of it, and I think one of the things that we share is this belief that, well, I know you can correct me if we don't share this, but I just really see that we're not, as a society, taught or encouraged to sit with difficult feelings because somebody can profit off of it. Right. So the messages are
there's that too. Yes.
Right. Like you should feel good all the time. And if you don't feel good all the time, I'll sell you something that will help. And so we're conditioned almost that bad feelings are bad, and so challenging feelings, difficult feelings, heavy feelings are all put in this trash bin of bad and things that should be avoided. And I think that's what causes our suffering, because now we're telling ourselves a story of this shouldn't be like this, instead of just being able to say like, this is how it is right now.
This is how it is right now. Sometimes it's just crappy. I remember, I mean, it even happened to me this season. I've lost both my parents now, and I feel sad.
Sure.
Yeah. Often, for some reason this year it really hit me with my father, who's gone 29 years.
Yeah.
This year I was just so sad. And I was fine. I didn't need to not be sad. And this year and last year it was more joyful, and I had a meal of something I knew he would have loved, and that's how I celebrated him. And a lot of times it is about celebration, but this year it was just, I was so bereft. Yeah. I haven't had a father for 29 years, and he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
So, but that's not a problem. Or when, in the year I grieved really hard when my mom died, my dad too, but it was different because I still had my mom.
Right.
But I grieved really hard that year. When people asked me how I was, I'd say, well, I'm deep in my grief and I'm fine.
Yeah. And
And
right? And yeah,
yes,
I love that idea that they can both be true.
all of the above. Well, I'll tell you, this is to me, and this is something I learned in the Kabbalistic healing training, that
Mm-hmm.
really some of the greatest healing comes in when you can sit in the middle of paradox of two
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
seemingly opposite things
Yeah, the tension of opposites, right?
and just be and simply
Yeah.
be with it is this and it is that.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
humans are like splitting machines. We want to make it all good, all bad,
We
evil,
do.
neutral, or
Yeah.
but all of that.
Yeah, yeah. We want to categorize it. We want it to fit neat and tidy. I often, when I talk about this exact concept with my grad students, one of the things I talk about is like, this is why Americans don't like soccer and hockey. There's not always a clear winner, right? So those games end
Really?
in
Oh, I don't know.
tie.
I'm
So
not a sports
yeah,
person.
they're just more likely than some of our other sports endeavors to end in a tie. And so I just think, I just believe that that's why they're not as popular in the United States as some other sports, because we want things to be black and or
Yes,
white, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
instead of understanding that gray is just a fine place to be, that the gray is
Mhm.
not going to hurt you. It
Right.
just might require some skill, and I think it's a little bit more difficult, and maybe we're just not attuned to accepting difficulty, or maybe, I'll get going on capitalism again, but
Uh-oh. Oh boy.
capitalism
But
makes
that
everything so difficult that we don't have
but
any bandwidth for this other
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's, you mentioned skill, and that's where our practices come in.
Mhm.
And that's why they're called practices. Like you don't just get to a place where you can just sit and meditate and go, Om
Mhm.
bliss. Like that's not even the point. It's building
Right.
these skills, this resilience, seeing your mind for what it is, seeing your
Mhm.
thoughts for what they are,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then resting in open awareness.
Yeah, yeah. When I teach meditation, I often tell people, like, any idiot can sit on a cushion for 10 minutes and breathe. That's not the point. It's, what do
Right.
you do with it? How do you become the observer? How do you adopt a beginner's mind? How do you
Yeah.
accept what is? Yeah, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I used to, when I led my in-person classes, meditation classes prior to the pandemic, they were in the studio at One Epic Place, which, as you know, faces Main Street, and they were 5 o'clock on Monday nights,
Oh
and it
Lord.
was so loud. And I used to invite the participants, and I would say to them, just let this sound
Yes,
exist, and don't
right.
let go of this idea that you must have a certain atmosphere to be able to successfully meditate,
Right.
and just release that and invite the noise in to remind you that you're right here in this room. But we get these ideas of how a thing should be,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think that messes us up a lot.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Sharon, let's take a real quick break. And then when we
Okay.
come back, maybe we can talk a little bit about specific practices that you have found helpful, and maybe provide a little bit of a how-to or a roadmap for folks that are looking to invite more well-being, more mindfulness, and more happiness, dare we say, into their
Mhm.
lives. We'll be right back.
Sounds great.
And we're back. Today we are talking to Sharon Rosen, and Sharon is now going to share with us some of the healing practices that she relies on most, or maybe the ones that she teaches to the clients that she works with.
Mm. And there are so many that I love. So one of them is when it comes to mindfulness, if somebody wants to meditate, um, I like to invite people to really feel their body
Mm.
because it people can get very, it's funny to me that it's called mindfulness, right? But I really encourage people to focus on like the feeling of their sit bones
Hmm.
in the chair, and maybe even tune into their skeleton a little bit and really be in their body. And I think, especially because we are in our heads so much, and now with all the screens and devices, our eyes, I've often said it's like we're walking heads, like we're just kind of cut off somewhere at the neck, right? And everything's going on from the neck up, and people aren't paying, unless you're a real exercise person, they're not paying that much attention to their body unless something hurts.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's
So
true.
I like the embodiment practice. And one of the really simple things I have taught people comes from Jinshin Jitsu, which is an oriental form of acupressure. And it's not anything I've studied in depth, but it's super simple, these Jinshin finger holds. And
Okay.
all you do is you very gently, with the fingers of one hand, wrap, say, your right hand around your left thumb, and you're just making contact, making like a jumper cable circuit. And it's very simple, and you don't have to know anything about it. But I can tell you that the thumb is for worry, the index finger is fear, the middle finger, take a guess, anger, right? The ring finger is grief, and the pinky is called pretense or trying. And you don't even have to really know these things, but like I was going through something the other day and I was like, oh, it was fear. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
hold your index finger. So just gently making contact and relax and breathe and hold one finger at a time, and just trust that you'll know when it's time to move on to the next finger, because sometimes you'll be feeling, some people really feel energy and some people don't. And I learned in energy work that sometimes just all of a sudden realizing you're kind of bored and like, oh, I've been hanging here for a while. Okay, let's move on. That's an indication that the energy has shifted. So I love to introduce that to people because it's so simple. I've even done it in the car when I'm driving. Like if I have a sudden, like somebody's coming into my lane and fear, while you're holding the steering wheel, you can actually
like
just kind of hang out with one hand holding the finger of the other.
Oh, that's really amazing. And I love the worry one because I work with folks that have anxiety or anxious thought patterns. And I'm always thinking about really discreet things that people could do, even if they're in public.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, like, and that's such a discreet thing. Like nobody's even going to notice that you're doing it, but you can be reinforcing this safety and this connection, and you're with yourself in your fear and in your anxiety. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful.
You don't have to know anything about the system. Just trust that you are completing an you're settling yourself, really.
Yeah,
Let's just call it that.
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Thank you. That's fantastic. What other things do you find? You were invoking Viktor Frankl before, and I'm curious. You were talking about meaning making, creating meaning out of the hard things that we encounter, which is a cornerstone of, I think, my healing practice. So we talked a little bit about this idea of meaning making and gratitude. Are those things that you engage with regularly?
I would say yes. It's interesting because I wasn't thinking Viktor Frankl when I said that. I had done a workshop years ago with a woman named Jacqueline Small, who was a psychotherapist and a transpersonal therapist and had written a bunch of books. I never see her name now, but she was wonderful. And she was the one who said, we are the meaning makers of our lives.
Okay.
We make meaning. And I will tell people a lot of times this story of a friend of mine who was looking to move to Arizona from New Jersey. And when she was at the counter at the airport, you know how there'll often be a little like indentation just under the counter. It kind of sticks out. Well, her foot got stuck and she twisted and broke her ankle.
Oh, gosh.
Now, a lot of people said that that was a sign that she wasn't supposed to move to Arizona. She did not see it that way. She had her own interpretation of what it meant. And she moved there and lived there happily for many, many years. So we are the meaning makers of our lives.
Right. Yeah, I love that.
It's funny. We haven't talked about this at all, but we had initially been saying that I was going to maybe talk about being tender to oneself.
We did talk about that. Oh, let's do.
And well, and so I'm circling back to that because when we're making meaning, or when we're talking to ourselves in the way that we are always talking to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
It astonishes me, and I've done the same. But it does kind of astonish me how really harsh we are to ourselves. We speak to
Yes.
ourselves in ways that we would not speak to our best friend,
Yeah.
or even maybe to an enemy. And
Yes. I would agree
I
with that.
think we get a lot further when we are tender and kind to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sylvia Boorstein, one of my beloved
Oh, I love
teachers, the
her.
Jewish grandma mindfulness Buddhist teacher.
She
Um,
has one of the best laughs on all of planet Earth. Can I also just say that little giggle she
yeah,
has? I adore her. She's fantastic.
I've had
Yeah.
the good fortune of sitting a number of retreats with her,
Ugh.
and she's such a great teacher. And she will teach that when something comes up and you get triggered and you're angry or you're upset or you're anxious or whatever, she will actually encourage people to put one hand on their chest, on their heart, and to say, literally like soothe yourself, like you would soothe a child. Oh, sweetheart, you're really upset right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just be with that. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so profound. Yeah.
It
And I,
really is. At
yeah.
first, I was like, oh, inner child, blah, blah, blah. But it's so profound to simply soothe yourself.
Right. Right.
Because
Right.
we are all, every age we've ever been inside.
That's right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
there is that inner 4-year-old who, for me was really upset because we went fishing and my brother caught a fish and I didn't.
Right.
And I still remember, probably because I
Yeah.
have a picture of me holding his fish with tears on my face because I knew this was not my fish. But oh, sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because truly, in so many provoking situations when we get escalated emotionally, I think it is because that 4-year-old is still really sad. And now this situation, this current situation at hand, is reminding her that she's really sad. And it's
Yeah.
funny because when you started talking about being tender and you were saying like we wouldn't talk this way to our friends or to an enemy, and what was in my head when you were saying that is we wouldn't speak that way to a child.
Oh, yeah.
And really, so often in our most difficult moments, it is the child within that's
Yeah.
reacting to the situation. And
Yeah.
so trying to think about that self-talk is how would you speak to a child who
Yeah.
was upset? Would you
Yeah.
tell them like, get over it already? What's wrong with you? Right.
Right.
Hopefully not. I mean, and I know
Right.
unfortunately there are
No.
there are too many
Yeah.
situations where a child is spoken to that way, but you know, we have that capacity to speak to ourselves like
Yes.
we wish we had been spoken to as a child.
Right.
That idea
Right.
of you're okay, you're safe,
Yeah.
what you're
And
feeling is
it makes
normal.
sense that you feel this way in this
Yes,
moment.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so, so beautiful. Sharon, was there anything else that we didn't say or that you want to share with the folks before we wrap up?
Oh, other than the 2 or 3 hours more that you and I could just talk
I
about these
know.
things.
We should just the next my next season should just be the Courtney and Sharon series, and we'll
There
meet
you
once a week
go.
and we'll talk
Oh,
all
that would be
things.
fun.
Oh my
That would
gosh,
be
it would be
fun.
so much fun. Yeah, I wanted to ask you really quickly, tell us about your book, and where people
Ah,
can find it
thank
and just yeah,
you.
just make a little mention of that.
So sweet. Yeah, 10 years. It's 10 years. So the book is called Crazy World, Peaceful Heart.
I love
Six
that
core.
title.
Yeah, that was great when I came up with that. 6 core practices for cultivating joy and resilience, which are basically the things we've been talking about, and they're very simple things. I can't remember now. It's terrible, my own book. But 10 years ago, I can't remember now. I don't think the finger holds are in there,
Okay.
but some other embodiment things that people can do,
Mm-hmm.
breathing, mindfulness, inquiry. I actually wrote about Byron Katie's work and
Okay.
was given permission to have a chapter about that,
Oh, that's amazing.
questioning our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So people can find it on my website,
Mm-hmm.
sharonrosen.com.
Yep. And
And
everything will be linked in the show notes too. So people
yeah,
will be able
thank
to
you.
track you
Yeah.
down there.
So I have hard copy, well, soft cover, an actual copy. I have a digital version, and I also have an expanded digital bundle that includes some audio that kind of takes each chapter and the practice in that chapter and kind of expands on it. It's not me just reading the chapter. And it's also on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com and all those good places.
Love it. Love it. Anything else? Are we good?
I will leave with one more quote from Sylvia Boorstein, which I love, and I don't think it's her own, but it's life is so difficult. How can we be anything but kind?
There has never been a more perfect ending to an episode ever. I almost don't want to talk anymore, but I do have my little speech I need to give to the people. So thank you, Sharon, for sharing all of this with us. It was so good to have this conversation, and I do think we might need to do a follow-up at some point in the future, because I think there's a lot more that we could say.
Thank you for inviting me. What a pleasure to get to talk about all these things that are so meaningful and helpful
and necessary. Yes,
and necessary
for sure. So thank you, listeners, for being with us. I hope you found this conversation helpful. If you have any thoughts about it, questions, or topic ideas for future episodes, please feel free to reach out at Courtney@shineandsoar.com or fill out the contact form on shineandsoar.com/podcast. If you're loving this content, please share it with your people, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcasts. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other.